And we're live with Hot Take Express with Kent Chamberlain. I am your host, Kent Chamberlain, and this is episode 4, The Radical Republicans Ride Again. Exciting news! Exciting news! I have been really busy this week. I've got, I gave myself a lot of homework. And on top of that, I've got day jobs worth of work this week, just helping the neighbors with their ranch. But no, Friday. So I haven't really had time to record this yet, but I'm gonna try to get this and 2 other episodes that I've got scripted out, recorded before I get back to town this week. I've also got 2 sort of bonus episodes just of stuff around the collective. Anyway, so I've got a lot of content for you guys, hopefully. But this is the beginning of that. And this is Thursday morning. Today is September 15th, 2022. So I'm talking about stuff that happened this past Friday, September 9th, 2022. But yeah, there was this meeting, a very exciting meeting between me and 7 close comrades of mine. Truth is, after the fall of the CPI, out of nowhere, we were all pretty aimless immediately. We tried to work with the former CPI, it didn't really work out. Long story short, disagreement on land back made cooperation impossible. We all were very nice about it, but it's just, what do you do when your values fundamentally clash like that? You can't really work together. I mean, it's like fascists and communists, or goodness and darkness, and so forth and so on. But anyway, Dust, he's already organizing the land back crew segment of the former CPI. That's the people that came in at the very end, when they started reaching out to the Revnats and the Uhurus. Dust has always been sort of the leader of that. I had an argument with him about that, and he disavowed land back, but he's pushing it. He's pushing the essence, just under a different name, under Revnat instead of land back. But his allies are people that literally say land back, so he's a land back guru. But yeah, I know he's a worker, but it's an example of okay, so where does the middle class come from? Where does the petty bourgeoisie come from? These are workers that sell out to some degree, that see the system and that see the boot they have to lick and are like, man, one day I'm gonna get a boot. I'm gonna have my own boot, and those peasants are gonna lick it. It's not everyone in the working class is always going to have the best of intentions. It's just true. And of those who do have the best intentions, they're not always going to have the best theory, because false consciousness deliberately blinds them. It's infuriating to be on the other end of that, to be the thing that false consciousness is directed against, to get the death threats of the land back gurus and so forth. So I have to save the Haas streams and Jackson streams and stuff and watch them later, just because I don't have internet out here. So I just finished watching a Haas stream where he was just utterly shocked and dismayed by the level of lying done, not just by his land back crew opponents, not just misrepresenting his position, but actually making fake accounts and posting Nazi crap under his name. It's just the most disingenuous crap. And I feel his nihilism in that moment. Like, these people really are that evil. They are our modern day fascists. Um, and they can be real nice about it, but identity politics always leads in that direction because, like, okay, so there's a book that I cite in the thesis I didn't ever finish, uh, Becoming Evil by James Waller. It describes the conditions of, like the mental, psychological conditions that are seen to be prerequisites to genocide. And because I was like trying to determine if the Mongols had done that, and like how we might figure it out scientifically from our modern vantage point, events that happened 800 years ago. Um, and so I went down the list of all the different things, and the Mongols checked every box, and that's the direction I was going to make with that, or the direction I was going to. That's the direction I was going to go with that. The argument I was going to make with that. But like, yeah, like, you look at this, and one of the preconditions for genocide is that the people about to do the genocide have a victimization narrative. Like, it can be legitimate. Like, in the case of the Mongols, is like, we have got to kill every Tatar man and boy taller than an ox cart, before we, before they do it to us. Because, well, that had happened in history. The Mongols and the Tatars just kept killing each other back and forth. Kill as many of them as you can when you can. So when the Mongols did it, like, they had a victimization narrative right there. And even though it was legitimate, like, the genocide still happened. Like, those Tatar men and boys still died. So you have victimization narratives, no matter how legitimate. Like, and, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans certainly have very valid victimization narratives, but the thing is, they're basically giving them the bourgeois deep state is giving them an ideological power, thought structure that will give them permission to support them as mercenaries, essentially, in the coming civil war. And the idea being they'll get their national independence, and finally get their justices wronged, from the white man wronged, they fixed, and then the white man will be the new underclass in the next dispensation. Bourgeois capitalism doesn't care which race, ethnicity, religion, whatever is the dividing line. There just has to be one. So that you can always keep the workers divided on culture, and never, always keep them fighting each other, weakening each other with the class war, or with the culture war, so that they never unite and fight the class war that needs to happen. White men had a good run, but maybe the next dispensation will be minority, black girl boss entrepreneurs. I don't know. Whatever the PMC class deems fit. Essentially, I think. And I'm kind of cynical, actually. I'm not even sure it'll go that far. Like, I think these people are all, like, getting real excited to essentially put the next Hillary Clinton in power. Maybe occasionally a Kamala Harris, But, like, I think this coming, like affirmative action. They did a study on affirmative action, to find out who it benefited most, and it was mostly rich white women. that were able to successfully use the law to their benefit to get like their quota established in their favor in their individual cases. And because even if the law was meant to advantage black people or Hispanic people or natives or whatever, it didn't. And occasionally, sometimes even disadvantaged Asians who were oftentimes, like, say, for college admissions, were especially qualified because they have like a very strong, the Confucian cultural dynamic really pushes education like as the way forward for a society. So they you will see Asians be like some of the best applicants to Harvard or Yale or Stanford or whatever, and a lot of them get turned down because we've already taken too many Asians, so like in some cases it's even disadvantaging racial minorities. And so like yeah, rich white women were the main beneficiaries of affirmative action, which the liberals were swearing was going to fix everything, but only ended up helping them in the run. Fancy that. But yeah, like so anyway, that's the nature of where the land backroom coalition is going. It's ultimately just in service of rich white people, probably rich white women more than anything. But the occasional sex trader or whatever, gender trader, I don't know what they call it, like, might be welcome. But yeah, like, so he's Dust is selling out in real time to them. He's a worker, but like he's the sort of worker where like the middle class comes from, where the petty bourgeoisie come from. Those are different things, by the way. I've got theory about that. You should read my book. It's linked down below. But yeah, the truth is, right now, among people who call themselves socialists, this land backroom stuff sells. The SPUSA was doing like settlers Bible studies, and like I think the DSA was too, and like so they've been brainwashed with this stuff. And so there is if you want to like get a room full of people to cheer for you, like saying land back is like the way to do it. Like if you know no other theory, you just need to know that and you can make it. And like that's Dust James now. So like yeah, workers can be misled, and workers can also sell out. Like class treason goes both ways. There's a famous quote. I think it was sort of like this rap battle between Nikita Khrushchev and Zhou Enlai. And Nikita Khrushchev was telling him, "You are the privileged scion of the Mandarin class, and I am the come from the humble peasant, working class stock of Russia or Ukraine rather." And Zhou Enlai was like, "True, but there is this similarity between us. We are both a traitor to our class." Burn! Like, yeah. And I feel like that's that. I have done quite a bit in service of the working class, even though I don't come from it. But yeah, like, I saw his speech at the CPI, and it was just like so much Hitler shrinking in front of these pink hairs, because it gets bigger audiences, it gets bigger cheers. But the thing is, I would rather create an even bigger audience than that over time by telling uncomfortable truths to everyone, not just leftists. There is a principle in communist theory whereby you, like, good praxis will beget results. Like, if the practice you're following is bad, you're not going to get anywhere by it. But if the practice you're following is good, then new people are going to flock to you and your org, and it's going to grow, and it's going to have the capacity to do even more successful things. And so being correct about things that are happening is important. Because like if you can call something that's going to happen just because of class analysis, and I'm gonna end the stream or end the recording by talking about it, but like the stream's already got hate watchers. Like if and these hate watchers, I called them red fash long before they ended up supporting Ukraine, because that's where they're at now. Like, it's amazing being right, like, so early, and, but that's the power of class analysis. It's almost prophecy. It is like secular prophecy, I swear. Because you can... I called Richard Spencer becoming a Democrat long before that ever happened. And, I mean, I was in this patriotic socialist space before everyone but Caleb. So in the long run, it's better to be right than popular. Dust is going to have his little moment in the sun being a mid-level celebrity C-list on YouTube at best. And then Landback is going to become more and more exposed for the fraud that it is. The federal, deep state-backed fraud that it is. And as that happens, as the real working masses of, like, black and Hispanic and Native people and Asian people in America stand up and, like, insist their voices be heard, and their voices end up contradicting the entire Land Backaroo program, it's gonna be beautiful. Because, like, I actually agree that those people need more political power. Absolutely they do. They need their voices heard. They need equal representation in Washington. But I don't think I don't think the elites actually know what those guys believe. I don't think they have any clue whatsoever. They pander to them based on, like, crude stereotypes, but that's not the reality of the situation. That's not the material conditions. And this land back stuff is a flop on the reservations. It's a flop on in the inner cities. It's a flop everywhere it goes. And that's just facts. Like, but what's not a flop is the Republican Party. Funny enough, like, more Hispanics voted for Trump the second time. There's, like, Hispanic Republicans getting elected down in Texas, that were born in Mexico and are voting for Trump. It's amazing. But yeah, like, so because of this disagreement over land back, and it's a fundamental disagreement, like, I mean, if you know that these people are going to end up helping the next Confederacy, because they too are, like, identity politics driven secessionist treason, why would you help them grow? Like, why would you make them more powerful? Why would you help the next Robert E. Lee? Why would you help the next J.E.B. Stewart? Like, no. Do your own thing with people who are going to be on the side of righteousness when that war comes, because it is going to be horrible, and I wish I could stop it. I do not celebrate it. I just know it's going to happen, because that's what the class analysis tells me. That's what the historical analysis tells me. And so it's good for everyone who loves this country and the American way of life and the U.S. Constitution and wants to preserve it to work together to save it, because it's coming, folks. But anyway, that's why I decided to convene this meeting of me and 7 other comrades, because we needed an organization to replace the CPI that was going to be more specifically patriotic socialist. First thing was, like, I just asked everyone to tell me what their values were, or like what values they wanted to see reflected in the org, essentially. And everyone said the same thing: patriotic socialism. Like, I mean, these were drawn from friends of mine that I, like, were already in that space, so I wasn't really surprised to see that. But, like, just, this is kind of the point of it. But the fact that we were all, like, on the same page so quickly was good. And that was like the main thing for me. I just, because, like, that was, like, what we couldn't agree on with the previous chat with the ex-CPI members, the RevNats and the Dust James people. And so, like, the fact that we all were on board with this and agreed and ready to move forward was important, because it gave us our organization. It let us make an organization on that foundation, because the values of an org are its foundation. And if you cannot agree on those values, your org isn't going to succeed. People have to believe in the values. And, like, when people stopped believing in the values of socialism in the Soviet Union is when it started, the clock started ticking for its overthrow. It kind of was like a slow cynicization, like, not Chinese making, but like cynic making. Like, it's they were becoming more and more cynical. Cynicization. Yeah, I see how they sound the same. That's weird. But yeah. So the meeting itself was run by according to the principles of democratic centralism, and it was slow and torturous. Because none of us had really done that before. I've read about it in books, and because I was the one convening the meeting, like, I was sort of directing the votes and stuff, but, like, otherwise, just making sure everyone got heard and everyone was able to, like, talk and stuff, and that, like, everyone was basically set in their opinions before we took votes, because sometimes people ended up combining their votes. But yeah, like, some people were kind of shy about giving their input, so I tried to draw it out of them, because, like, well, you want everyone to have an input, even if they disagree. Like, you're not trying to get... And the disagreement is important, because, like, if you disagree on points of theory, well, it's important you have that discussion, like, to figure out how you should proceed, In this case, we, were able to talk everything out, or just have votes about it, and, democracy prevails, and then the losers are fine with that, because they got to have their say, and, like, they were heard out. They weren't agreed with, but they got heard out and respected respectfully, and everything was cool. But yeah, like, so the thing is, democratic centralism can be prostituted by political tricks in the way that, like, Joey and Trotsky both tried to do it. Like, Trotsky back in the Bolshevik days, Joey far more recently. But when it's living up to its true nature amongst people of a like mind and like values, it's beautiful, because, I mean, we were able to find consensus, and we all were very, very much behind the final product. Like, whereas in bourgeois democratic votes, like, you know, 49% of the population is guaranteed to be pissed off at the result, and that even some of the 51% aren't gonna love what just happened, you know. But like, democratic centralism builds consensus, and that's what I think is awesome about it. And it allows for a much more smoothly operating society. So the first vote we held was in chat, and it was just determined, like, are we going to hold this on Zoom or on chat? And I remembered back to, like, the CPI call, and Zoom is such a terrible platform. I mean, you only get so long unless the host is paying them money. You, like, the hardware issues are enormous, and, like, it's just such a terrible thing. Like, we were able to build consensus around the idea that today or that day we should hold it in chat, but we should identify a platform without as many bugs in future and just hold video calls on that. And I'm fine with that. But it was important that we be able to, like, proceed without glitches, and that was the best way. For that day, and basically we're gonna identify a platform, though, because you know, there's important ticks that are lost, that, you know, and nuances of conversation that are lost, and, you know, so it's just a good thing. But like, yeah, and another thing is, yeah, me and a couple of the guys were having a you know, Zoom call earlier before my phone just started glitching about it, like, and I couldn't fix it. And it was a really good call. We were talking about some interesting things, making some interesting historical and class analyses. Like, that's the kind of thing that my Marxist-Leninist theory wants to promote, is the workers thinking for themselves, and like, at the very beginning of my book, I give them the ideological tools to do that. It's real simple, actually. Class analysis is not difficult, but you have to know the nature of the reality you're working with, and that hasn't been fully elaborated, I think, until Marxism, Leninism. Like, the political compass has not been properly mapped until I mapped it. That sounds like a big claim, but just read my book, you'll see. But anyway, so after we just decided it was going to be held in chat, we then decided, alright, so we have to figure out the nature of the organization. But we talked about it, and it led to consensus on the very first vote. Thing is, there had been several different ideas initially mentioned the week before, when we were talking about the meeting we were going to hold. But, like, it ended up, as we talked about it, we realized that, like, it could do all of these things, and a good organization would do all of these things. But, like, you know, if we're just going to be an educational organization, right, that wouldn't necessarily be a political party. Or if we were going to just be, like, you know, YouTube streamers or whatever, that wasn't necessarily going to be a political party. Or if we were just going to be, like, local collectives and solidarity organizations, that wasn't really going to be a political party. But, like, or, you know, a think tank wasn't going to necessarily. So, like, you have all these things we could be, but, like, if you were going to be a political party, you would have all those things. And my idea was just we should be a political party. CPI organized itself as a think tank, and I think for what they were trying to do in the period they were trying to do it, that was fine. Just raise awareness of patriotic socialism, raise awareness of anti-imperialism, and that anti-imperialism is the main contradiction, and rebut imperialist propaganda. That was like the core of what the CPI did back in the day, and that was fine. Some of their demands were similar in nature to the Marxist Leninist demands. Like, I call it like the minimum demands incompatible with bourgeois democracy. Like, in Lincoln's day, it was restricting slavery from the territories. In our day, it would be defunding the FBI and CIA, and pulling the troops out of our military bases around the world, and stop not funding Ukraine anymore. That not doing the sanctions regime against Russia. That's what like, they had a different idea about how to go about that, and they were a lot shyer about the whole concept of civil war, like, and certainly, but the whole strategy with this minimum demand incompatible with bourgeois democracy is that you're still not doing the violence yourself. You are staying within the rights of and duties of the U.S. Constitution. You are staying within the limits of the law, and you are just winning an election doing on a demand that the people want. And so you have legitimacy to carry out this demand, and it forces the bourgeoisie to break the law, the bourgeoisie to start the revolution, and the bourgeoisie to be the criminals. Like, and happened with the Confederacy. And so, anyway, that was like, we were kind of pushing in the same direction for most of the CPI's existence before they started making ties with the Yahoo people. But the time has come and passed for a politically neutral think tank. Also, I think that was part of a reaction to Caleb's personal need to not be in a partisan organization as part of his journalistic responsibilities. And as far as that goes, that's fine. Like, that's completely understandable, we want a fair and unbiased press, and so far as that's possible, like, people should be trying to tell each other the truth. But like, these 8 comrades in this chat on Friday were not so burdened by that personal need. So yeah, we just decided to form a political party, or more technically, given the realities of ballot access in these material conditions, a caucus of a political party. And we didn't found it, we refounded it. Because it was the radical Republicans. Yeah. One of these days I gotta show you guys how I make coffee. That was delicious. Hazelnut anything. Like, I am like, I am so basic when it comes to hazelnut. Like, it is amazing. The artificial crap, yeah, I don't care. They grow in Nebraska. When I go there this winter, I should try to pick some if they're still in season. They might not be. Anyway, enough tangents. But yeah, so my idea of refounding the radical Republicans passed, so long as it had associated orgs in these other fields carrying out other work. And there was actually a very insistent demand, that these associated orgs be subordinate, and deliberately subordinate even to, and explicitly so, to the central authority. We hadn't really figured out what that was going to be yet. What the central authority was going to be called. We ended up settling on the Secretariat. So yeah, so long as that was specified, and yeah, it's just a basic communist theory about the front group, going on right there. And that's fine and good and wholesome. So yeah, I have no problems agreeing with that. We're not decentralized anarchies. Although I did end up making a proposal that we direct our appeal to part of the anarchist community, and I'll explain that in a bit. But yeah, so we're gonna have, and also we realized that, hey, since we're a bunch of dudes on the internet, there is nothing we can do really directly off the internet. I mean, if we want to make some meme page or something, we could totally do that. But as far as organizing in real life, only those of us that live near each other can do that. And surprisingly, I think 3 of us do. There's 2 of them in the Salt Lake City area, and then I am about 3 hours away from that the way I drive. Faster drivers with better vehicles could probably get there in 2. No, actually, I think 3, and I probably even closer to 4. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, instead of bourgeois democracy, where there's always an incentive for 2 sides to be roughly equally, roughly equal division of society down the middle, and bitterly opposed to each other. Democratic centralism encouraged us to come together and create consensus, and we realized none of our core issues were opposed to each other, so we just worked together. And because there's no real incentive not to work together. Without democratic centralism wouldn't necessarily work so well if we didn't all have these common values to work from. But with these common values to work from, it's the highest stage of democracy by far. I never had such a small d democratic meeting as I did this past Friday. So anyway, a second vote was to establish a particular form of democratic centralist government for the radical Republicans. So should the people in the meeting hold power as a legislature and designate a speaker or vote for a central leader? The way I put it to them was, should we elect a Stalin, essentially, or should the Politburo be in charge? So I voted for a central leader because although this was a really democratic and wholesome process, it was really slow. There's always a couple people AFK, when you're trying to get their input to, so you can just, there's a lot of times where since there were 8 of us, we needed, 5 votes is a majority. And, so you're just waiting for that 5th vote, that 5th yes vote to come, that is there, out there somewhere. If someone would just stop being AFK, and it doesn't happen, And to be fair, some of them were at work at, different parts of the meeting. So, a workers group cannot hold that against them. So it's not like that, but, it was frustrating all the same. And so, I voted for a central leader because it's since we all have these same values, it's probably best to just, have, a central guy, or, one guy that can speak on behalf of everyone. But, now I was narrowly outvoted on this, though. They basically voted for the Politburo over Stalin, but I don't really mind, because Stalin, when he had his supreme dictatorial quote unquote power, basically tried to set up a system like that to succeed him, a Politburo of just like average workers, pulled from all over the Soviet Union. But he was poisoned by Beria before it could be completed and like set to real power. Now I would, and I told him this at the time, and I'll say it here. I would catch bullets for anyone in that chat, so I'm not worried about any of my comrades getting drunk with power and doing stuff that I wouldn't agree with. Like we're same values, so like we'd all end up doing, or at least be trying to serve the go in the same direction with the power. So like a strong central authority, united central authority, and doesn't bother me. But that said, forcing us to work through the democratic centralist process, it will take longer. It will be more annoying for the person directing it, but the decisions that it reaches in the end will be more popular, and that is a genuine bonus. Like that's genuinely useful to the organization. So like maybe they were right. They could very well be right. And so there are benefits to their approach, and this is the kind of consensus. Like even though I lost this vote, like that's okay. Like I'm not like some bitter opposition mad about it. Like I can see why. I heard their arguments too, just as much as they heard mine, and it's cool. I get where they're coming from. Like it makes sense. So and there's also the possibility that like maybe in the future we'll get better at this, and future meetings will speed up. So at least Kaiden thought so, and I think there's reason to hope for that. Like it was our very first time doing this. And it's not like any one of us busted out like Robert's Rules of Order or anything. I was just because I convened it, I was sort of like the speaker, directing the votes and directing conversation and so forth. But like every revolutionary act has to originate in authoritarianism in some way, because like even if it's for the people, you cannot possibly convene a vote of the people to act on their behalf. Like you have to do it just based on some sort of authoritarian revolutionary authority, and so like that's where it starts. But like any legitimate revolutionary authority will seek to get democratic consent for its power as soon as possible. And at this point, like when we were basically, it was the appropriate point to do it, because now we're trying to decide who is going to be leading this legislative body as its speaker. The legislative body ended up being called the Secretariat, like I said. But yes, so even though the legislative body, and we didn't or ends up being like the sovereign central authority, like someone still has to call votes, designate speaking time, stuff like that. So yeah, like I had been doing it, but I needed either democratic legitimacy or replacement. So I actually voted for my best internet comrade, Nils Love, to take the reins. He's very well read. He's one of the wisest people I've ever met. A good judge of character, but somehow, despite all of that, he gets along with all kinds of leftists anyway. People that like I can't tolerate, and I'm just like go on blocking sprees, and they catch them, and like they're all on his friends list, and they all get along somehow, and that is a skill I do not have. And it is a skill. Like, I actually do think that, getting along with people, sociality, not necessarily, not, which is a different thing from socialism, but just the ability to be social is a skill. And it shouldn't be underestimated. So that's why my vote was for Nils. Um, like, honestly, anyone in that chat would have been just fine as a leader if elected. And that was the point. Like, I picked a broad range of excellence on purpose when I was convening the chat. I wanted people that I knew would be good comrades, and that were trustworthy, and um, you know well educated and dedicated, and thoughtful. Yeah, just like all around good comrades. Any one of those guys would have been fine as leader. So this was not a vote I was worried about either. So, but anyway, I nominated Nils, but everyone else kind of nominated me, and the speeches, the messages they get posted saying so were really moving. And I don't want to let it go too much to my head, so I'm not going to repost them, or bring them up here. But it was really cool that these guys trust me so much, and a lot of it was around the fact. I will say one thing: a lot of it was around the fact that I had been doing this longer than anyone but Caleb. That I had written a theory, and that they'd lived to see so much of it come true. Not all of them had, even read my book, but they'd heard enough snippets from it, and that made sense and gelled with their understanding of reality, that they were willing, in these uncertain times, they wanted someone who had, when there wasn't any reading to be doing on it, had done the writing for other people to do the reading. And that's why they picked me. And so when that I was nominated by enough people that it was just that's already half the vote. It was 4 people nominating me, and then as the votes trickled in, they all went towards me, which was really touching. I accepted, on the condition that Nils be the second in command of whatever we were founding, because of those values, those character traits and skills I have noticed in him. Here's another thing about Nils. The class, the historical and class analysis that I teach in Class Analysis and Revolution, that book that you should read, linked in the description. He was the first one I ever saw to use that metric to make a valid class analysis of history, and it just made me so happy, so thrilled to see how my ideas were being correctly implemented in the real world. So I cannot, like I said, anyone would be fine, but this guy is fire. He is a genius. He is legit brilliant. And so, but I'm also, I talk about AFK mofos, but I'm AFK right now. I'm only online when I go to town, and that doesn't happen all the time. So the idea is when I'm not here, when I'm not online, Nils can hold down the fort. So yeah, and everyone was fine with that, and so it happened. So The fourth vote was decide a name. I didn't think that this was going to be a vote, but someone raised an objection to radical Republicans on the grounds of like, well, they might think we're, adventurists and we're going to try to like storm the Capitol a la January 6th or something. And like, it's a legitimate worry. Like, we do not want to appear to be adventurist, and because I certainly denounce left adventurism, right adventurism. Anything that gets good people arrested and killed is not, for no purpose whatsoever, is not praxis worth following. So you certainly do not want that. However, and there were some really good alternative names suggested when the concern was brought up, because that's another thing. One comrade had a concern, so it's like, all right, let's have a vote about it. Like, maybe we shouldn't be called the radical Republicans. That's a legitimate concern. Like, so let's hear everyone's ideas. And so there were like two main ideas besides radical Republicans. One of them was Lincoln Republicans, which would have been fine and fit what we were about just fine. But one thing I have noticed is that a lot of people are like, even Liz Cheney is like calling herself like an heir of Lincoln these days. Like, and there was this really crap group like the Lincoln Project, I think it was called, or something like that. It was like a bunch of Republican grifters that were like gonna try to stop Trump, and they didn't. But yeah, I think someone even like did some scientific analysis about the effect of the Lincoln Project's ad spending, and discovered that it made people more likely to vote for Trump because it just was so bourgeois and high-handed and arrogant that like people just despised it and wanted to vote Trump in defiance of it, which is totally a sentiment I get. But yeah, so like Lincoln Republicans would have been fine, but like it might not have been clear enough, or it might not have been clear, or it might have been vague in ways we didn't really want it to be vague, and clear in ways I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but like it was fine. Like, and I absolutely have no problem slapping the name of Lincoln on stuff. Like, I call myself a Marxist Lincolnist, so clearly that's fine. But like the other thing that I just found fascinating, because I had thought of this too. It was when like I was trying to think of things to call the theory I was writing, and I ended up settling on Marxism Lincolnism. One of the things I'd thought of was People's Republicans. Just because like you've got all these different like people's republics around the world that are communist countries, but like we are Republicans, and we're trying to reclaim the GOP as America's vanguard party. So People's Republican would be a perfect name. What I think would be the better use for it, though, because like the idea of the org that we're founding here is that it's not just for communists. It's going to be carrying out the theory I write, which is inspired by communism, but like in some ways it's inspired by like my libertarian roots, because I was a libertarian for years. It was the first political ideology I ever really believed in. In some ways it's inspired by like the flavor of libertarianism I ended up following, geo-libertarianism, writers like Henry George, which are kind of close to communism. It was like Thomas Paine was another. He didn't use the term geo-libertarian, but some of his ideas were forerunners to people like Henry George, and at the time he was around. Thomas Paine was like Marx before Marx. He was like the big radical leftist thinker of the era. Um, After the American Revolution was done and won, he went to France and helped them with their revolution and served in their legislature. So, like, there's gonna. I want, and I've been saying this for a while now. I think a lot of our cadre, that are going to be in the radical Republicans, are currently in the Libertarian Party. Some of them, yeah, also in the Republican Party, obviously. But yeah, like, I think a lot of them are going to be libertarians because they know how party politics works. They already know how ballot access works. They already know an ideology that has some similarities to ours, and we can point out native forms of libertarianism that agree with most of what we're saying. And for our part, there's no reason, like, our socialist ideas can totally be built in a format that doesn't violate geo-libertarian principles, right? Like, these workers' collectives can be, operating in a free market, or more properly, there is no such thing as a fully free market, but, as free as, we can make it, as free and fair as we can make it, which means that any regulations on it are going to be democratically agreed by the participants. So, yeah, like, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean government, democratically regulated by the participants through the government. It could just mean, like, every flea market, so to speak, has, like, its own rules and regulations, and the flea markets are owned by, collectively by everyone that regularly shops there. Or maybe you even have to, like, maybe every flea market will be like, I keep saying flea market, it'll be like a flea market. The entry cost will be similar to that, but, like, maybe the customers even have to pay, like, a small fee or something, but, like, everyone in exchange for this, like, that's what it will pay for any necessary regulation to give both the customers and the sellers confidence in the market that they're not going to get screwed over or, like, have unexpected costs or anything. Maybe they'd even democratically vote to refund the cost for the poorest or something if they decide to means testing is a good idea. Although in a properly socialist society, I just don't see any need for that, because means testing would be unnecessary and harmful. If you're going to have any kind of benefit, it should just, like, Bill Gates should be able to get it if he really wants to collect the check, or stand in line for the, benefits or whatever. But, like, just so that, like, people that need it don't get held up by red tape. But if you're not going to have that, and honestly, like, the entire welfare state could totally be just routed through these collectives, and so these markets would be just different collectives, and as well as family businesses and family farms and stuff, like, just selling their produce to, the locals. And, like, if that, there's a variant of socialism called market socialism, and so, like, just so long as we ensure that every participant in such a marketplace is like, either a collective enterprise or so small scale that it cannot possibly challenge the worker control of the not just the means of production but the means of distribution, i.e. the market. So long as worker control of the whole system is ensured, you can have, like, family businesses. Like, if maybe just like you'd only be able to like hire your immediate relatives, but you could have that, you know. So you could have like even a relatively privatized, light industrial base, and then like, um, and even when stuff is collectivized, it's not going to be collectivized. It's not going to be the government controlling that and owning that. It's going to be private entities that are collectively owned, like that anyone, like they'll still be hiring and so forth, but like the idea behind them will be like ensuring mass employment, and like basically if you need a job, show up, and like if the job you wanted to do isn't available, like if there's just not the need for that, they will transfer you to some other useful sector, that can add to the national wealth, and pay, man, I'm getting on tangents. So anyway, we had a vote, and we decided that, like, my point with radical Republicans was that it's a historical name that we can show up on day one and claim legitimacy, because this is what the last time that communists tried to enter the GOP and were a key faction inside of it, that's what we called ourselves, and that is remembered by history, and no one is going to be able to argue with our presence in the GOP if we call ourselves radical Republicans. As far as like the adventurism thing, I get it and I fully agree. But I think we can just avoid that charge by sticking a clause in our Constitution that says we fully reject left adventurism, right adventurism, and all other forms of terrorism. And that should be sufficient. So then that left us with deciding the name of the legislature and its speaker, because there is a general consensus among us that we should have, even though we're communists, we're not like communists in the same way that the land backaroos are communists, right? We don't want to be associated with the left, and I mean, we're the real left, we're the old left, but like, we're not at all like the synthetic left, and we need to draw a sharp distinction between us. So even though I was using like Politburo and Stalin as like metaphors for some of the earlier votes, like we didn't want to call it the Politburo, like, so we were kicking around other ideas, but no one really had any kind of fire. And I was just thinking like, well, what if Stalin's title was General Secretary of the Communist Party, and permutations of that phrase have been used in other contexts. There's the Secretary General of the United Nations, and I think they're called that mainly because of the influence of French, which just reverses the terms. Because I believe, not only is French one of the 6 languages that the United Nations business is conducted in, but it's like the French are so persnickety about their cultural prominence that like everything they print and whatnot is done in French, unless it's just meant for like end users in some conflict zone, in which case it's in whatever local language. But but yeah, like so because it was the general secretary and everyone seemed okay with that, and it was like, because we can call ourselves that and it can be like a quiet little nod, but it's like it doesn't scream communism, like and then because it's the general secretary, we could just, the executive body could just be called the secretariat. Like eventually we will probably have like Nils is, I imagine his title would be vice general secretary, and then like if we end up having a like Kaiden, his idea was that we should definitely, whatever else we do, set up like some sort of educational institution that can teach people the basics of anti-imperialism and like Marxism, Lincolnism, and so forth. And yeah, I'm all for that. So like maybe Caden, fuck, bro, I just butchered your name one way or the other, and I'm so sorry. Anyway, that maybe he might end up being like the Secretary of Education or something. Like as we name people to different titles, he'll be the secretary of this or that, I imagine. So Secretariat is an appropriate name for the org, and it just sounds cool. And I'm not saying this because I think so. I'm saying this because like when I first mentioned it as like an idea that I literally just thought up at the time, everyone was like, yeah, that's awesome. So like it was very well received. So like that, we didn't even hold a vote. Like that was just general acclamation, the name. So anyway, on to the final discussions of the meeting. We announced our existence to the world. Like I designed a post with their input to talk about like exactly who we were going to be reaching out to, and like so like patriotic socialists and conservatives and MAGA supporters and I mentioned anarchists, but like so the synthetic leftist anarchists, which is to say most of them are not included, but like they're gonna self-sort because there are working class anarchists. Like I'd say a lot of the ANPRIMs and the ANCAPs too. They're more with the libertarians, but like they self-identify as anarchists, so they count. Yeah, like those anarchists are welcome. And the ANPRIMs because like so Lincolnism also implies like the homesteading practice I'm following. I'm doing it in a collectivist format, but like you still need to know how to homestead and how to live off grid and how to live off land and stuff, and that kind of knowledge is been preserved best by the ANPRIMs. Like and when they're not ANPRIMs, it's like there's the prepper types and the survivalist types, and also just kind of more normie but still in the same basic ballpark, the permaculture types, people like Brad Lancaster, like so them, and like independents, and apolitical workers too. Like we decided that we needed to like specifically appeal to them. So it's a very big tent we're hoping to draw on principles we can all agree with. And once that was agreed, we announced our existence to the world, and it was posted all across different face or messenger chats and like on Facebook groups and whatnot. We decided I'd write the Constitution for the Radical Republicans, something I'm still working on, but it'll be ready this coming weekend. And we class analyzed the current GOP coalition and came up with the best places to begin our outreach. I'm not going to say what the results of that class analysis were, but if you're a viewer and you weren't privy to those conversations, do it yourself. Like think about what would be the most receptive parts of the current GOP coalition to our message. Where would you direct your efforts if you were us? And post your thoughts about that in the comments. Actually, I hope it sparks a really interesting discussion. And if your idea is good enough, well, we might just take it up. We're always looking for ins with ways to make new friends. But yeah, the best idea of the whole thing wasn't even mine. Caden suggested I hand out weekly homework, like in Fight Club. Um, like when Tyler Durden's like, handing out homework assignments at the end of every Fight Club. Uh, yeah, like it's genius. It's a brilliant idea because constant activity is the lifeblood of any org, and homework assignments would keep it humming and doing useful work. And I didn't even plan to talk about this, but like, I used to play, like a good thing to compare an org like this to would be like an internet clan for like an MMO or something. I used to play this online browser game called Lunar Wars. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was really fun. And I led a faction called the Sons of Liberty. Um, and actually, the flag for that was not just based, but possibly useful for our purposes here. So that might be making a comeback. We'll see. It accidentally a very anti-land backaroo flag, but just running an internet game, clan like that, or in the game it was called an alliance because you had everyone had their like own little independent lunar colony, and they were in these different alliances. But yeah, like you had this, and the my alliance did not have like the strongest colonies in it, and the game was inherently broken in ways that we couldn't really catch up to. But like the strongest colonies stayed the strongest colonies, although we managed to sucker a bunch of them into fighting each other. But like we ended up having an alliance that punched much higher than its weight because we were the most active alliance. And I did this different ways. There were activity drills. Like everyone would have to sign in, like within 24 hours of like anytime I tell them to sign in on somewhere on the forum we set up for this. And anyone that didn't was moved to active reserves, which had to just like sign in once a month. But like if they couldn't do that, they were cut because like the idea is like membership in this thing is a privilege. You have to earn it by staying active. And if you can't be active, that's fine. We understand, but you can't be part of this. Like, we are people on a mission, and the mission is to win this game. This is all just for fun, but it really uses a lot of the same sort of organizational building things. Like, and it's funny because like this Sons of Liberty thing, I was dealing with literal military intelligence officers in Iraq that were like, hey, bro, I can set up your, intelligence operation for you. I was like, all right. So, like, my piddly little internet game had, like, professional, deep state officers, like, doing, SIGINT and humans and stuff. And it was, like, amazing. We had these, besides, the activity drills and the literal intelligence operation. I mean, I found that out. I was really good at like making propaganda videos, just like going through like old B-movie sci-fi stuff that like most people hadn't watched, because like you couldn't make this stuff out of like the Starship Enterprise or like the Death Star or anything. Like these propaganda movies like that were supposedly depicting these wars on the moon, they had to be out of sci-fi stuff because obviously I don't have the money to film that stuff like myself, so it's got to be stuff that you could source on from B movies that people wouldn't recognize. So it gives the impression that like you're really there and like the stuff is really happening. And what it does is like these propaganda movies would like get people in the mindset that this was like really a thing. Like it would make the wins feel sweeter, the losses more bearable. Like my alliance lost a war once, and part of the terms of surrender was like I had to make a video about it. It's just everyone loved my videos, like my enemies, which it weren't really, like we were all pretty much friends in this game, and like even though like we would like definitely role play otherwise, uh, we would, you know, like these propaganda videos were great, and they were would because like so anyway because I made my alliance a hub of activity. A bunch of and like I had sent out these recruiting messages that I was like putting myself in the minds of the people that were just joining the game, and like every one of them got one of my recruiting messages, and a lot of them joined, and that meant like we were really overstaffed on the like lower levels where it didn't matter so much, and understaffed on the higher levels where it did. But you know it we created not just like an alliance in a game, but a community that people wanted to be part of, and it was just always activity, always something going on, and that's how you did it. And this same thing applies with like, well, real life. If you're really building an org, people got to be working on it all the time. You know, like so yeah, homework assignments were part of that, and it's a great idea, and I'm really glad Caden thought of that. I gave myself some homework assignments as well as giving them some. Um, Mine is to write that constitution and make 3 of these videos. This is and the bonus content about like the collective doesn't count. So this is video 1. I've got 2 more to go. And that's a reach because like I'm gonna be really busy this week, but that's fine. That's homework. That's it's effort. You gotta like take some effort. You gotta focus your will. You gotta work on yourself so you can produce something more and better than you have been. So like, and that's how you grow as a person. Even if it's like in some game, it's still a good thing, and especially if it's real life, it's so much better. So yeah, if you want to have a purpose in life and you want to have regular responsibility for doing good things to improve your life and the community around you, join us. We're after the same stuff. So, of course, any foundation as pure and beautiful as that cannot go unhated. We already have haters. The morning after our meeting, which was really just triumphant, we all just felt like, there was just this glow afterwards, like we had just accomplished something great and we all knew it. But the morning after that, Nils, Vice General Secretary of the Radical Republicans, was released from his mod duties in the Communist Party of Facebook left book group the morning after our meeting, which that's an org and it exists. I guess I don't see the purpose, but like there are a lot of communists involved with it. Facebook is like bourgeois, petty bourgeois, and middle class. Like these are not people that are predisposed to our message. I mean, certainly there are going to be some class traders here, and there are going to be some workers here, but like, it's not, I don't think, where we should be centering our outreach. And so, like, the fact that there is a communist party of Facebook, and that it's dominated by leftists, or by these synthetic leftist forces that are going to kick someone out for, being involved with our org, does not surprise me at all. Because, and guess who runs this communist party of Facebook? One of the admins is Dust James. Yeah, this is a pattern, a definite pattern. But yeah, I feel sorry for Nils because he's just a good comrade trying to do good wherever he can, and they needed people that were able to screen new members, and that's just like the unglamorous administrative work of like group moderation on Facebook, or really any moderation on any social media. I used to run internet message boards, and like this is the kind of crap that people have to do to make those successful. And he was doing this work for them since Valentine's Day of this year, and didn't get so much as a thank you or a notification with this purge. And I'm not gonna say too much yet. Hopefully, I don't have to say anything else. But like a little channel like mine already has hate watchers subscribed to it. Yeah, what could I say? Like, multiple hate watchers. It's ridiculous. Like, there's these poser communists, supporters of literal Ukrainian fascism. All I gotta say to you guys is, cope and seethe, because the radical Republicans are moving forward, and your orgs are still as relevant as ever. In at least outside of any circle not dependent on the deep state for its maintenance. So just, stay quiet where you're safe from reckoning with the truth or face the consequences, because I got deets on each and every one of you I can drop if ever the situation calls for it. And you don't want to deal with that storm. So, in conclusion, 8 people got online last Friday and refounded the Radical Republicans caucus. 8 people organizing on the internet is already too scary for our haters and the flabby armed spanking machine they're revving up in response. So get in on the ground floor of this amazing noise and the redemption of America's vanguard party, and you can tell your grandkids you were here and helping it fight back when fascism came to this continent. So, yeah, that was a very exciting stream, or exciting video to make. Great news, and it's finally out there. Organizing is going to continue. You've just begun to hear about this. Alright, come on up here. My kitty girl wants to say hi. Her name is Sakaki. She's 10 years old. She is amazing. But she's also sometimes kind of needy, and that's okay. I love her anyway. So yeah, that's the state of things. It was a lot to go over. There's 2 more episodes I've got in store, but yeah, that's the Radical Republicans reborn, and I am its General Secretary. And now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Hot Take Express!